There he is, Mr. Michael Sweet.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Good, man. How you been? It's been a while.
It has. I'm doing good. I'm just recuperating from the past year. Like everyone else, it seems everyone's had a pretty crazy, busy year.
Yeah, it seems like yours has been, yours is always busy, crazy, but it's been a little stressful this year, too.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. But, it's the end of the year, and we're stepping into a new one, 2018, and, we're positive, and there's good
Nice.
things to come for sure.
Nice. So then, like, when a situation like that happens where you're going through a situation like you did with Tim and it's causing stress and all, and, you just don't have the Stryper world. You have all your different worlds. You have, Lynch and Sweet with George. You have your solo stuff. Does it affect all different angles, including family life at home?
Well, sure, because, we're so involved in the band. It's not just a weekend warrior kind of thing. It's a daily, year-round thing. And my wife, manages the band and, helps with coordinating everything and budgets and whatnot. So she's in it just as much as I am. So, yeah, absolutely. When you're dealing with, the only way I could put it, when you're dealing with, I guess, drama is the best word for it. We all know how that goes in our own personal lives, and because we all face drama and deal with drama, and it's never fun.
Sure.
And we want it to be a drama-free life and drama-free world, but that's not reality. But when you're in it thick and thin and you're dealing with it, it sometimes just outright sucks. And and there's not much you can do other than to just grin and get through it and smile big and know that there's hope coming around the corner.
Does the drama help you make more beautiful music?
I don't know about more beautiful music, but certainly more interesting music. Because I write from experience a lot, and when I'm going through something heavy or personal, a lot of times I'll write about that. And that's how I write songs and lyrics, especially, and it makes for the tone of whatever it is I'm working on at the time. So the lyrics might take a little bit of a darker turn, or the music might take a little bit of a darker turn. But I think in the end, it's all good stuff. That's what I feed off of, and what I'm inspired by is real life experiences.
Nice. Now, did your phone, like when the word was out that Tim was out, before you guys got Perry into the group, was your phone just start like ringing off the hook like crazy? People wanting to be in the band?
It didn't. I mean, we started getting a lot of private messages and emails and forwards and things like that. But, I try not to give my phone number out to too many people. Enough people have it already, and it is ringing constantly, so I have to silence it. But, no, it wasn't so bad in that regard. There were a lot of people, many people who wanted to play bass for Stryper, and that was, in a good way, overwhelming. I mean, seeing all the private messages and direct messages and emails, and it's like, wow. And we didn't even put the official word out and start seeking out on social media a bass player.
Right.
And it just kind of took off on its own. But we kind of knew, early on we had someone in mind. And then when we found out about Perry, we knew he was the guy. Once we met with him and flew him out and played with him, we knew, okay, this is the guy. So, it was never in the back of our mind like, let's audition 100 people or 200 people like most bands do.
Right. Well, that's good. You didn't have to go through that whole process. It's not like you have the time because you're doing so much already.
Yeah, and, I always thought that process is kind of crazy, I guess if you have to do it, you have to do it. But if you have someone in mind, why not just go with that? If there's someone that you just love and they come in and they fill the room with joy and kind of light the room up, and then you hear them sing and play, and they're great. It's like, well, we gotta go through 100 more people, and then we'll get back to you. It's like, well, that's just dumb.
Yeah, can you imagine?
That's a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, like what Stone Temple Pilots did. They listen to 10,000 tapes or something like that. I can't imagine that.
God bless him, man. I just think that's insane, and not the way Stryper would want to ever do it or would ever do it. It's just silly. I mean, we know musicians. I know people, and there are my go-to guys. When I do solo albums, when I do Sweet Lynch, when I do Stryper, obviously Robert is our drummer. When I do Sweet Lynch, Brian Tishy is the go-to guy. When I do solo stuff, I'll use Will Hunt, who I love. It's not like I got to audition 100 guys or go through 10,000 tapes. I just think that's insane. Wow. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of frightening to even think.
It really is. And, again, God bless those guys. That must have been a real task and some seriously hard work.
Yeah.
And, they could have saved themselves a lot of time and effort and frustration if they had just called this guy named Michael Sweet,
There you go. There you go. Although I can't picture you doing that.
Of course I'm kidding. Please, nobody reading that, take it serious. Blabbermouth, don't post that as as bait. Please. Okay.
Too funny. Yeah, as much as I love Blabbermouth, I always tell everybody, just don't read the comments. Just read the news and don't read the comments.
Yeah, it's funny about Blabbermouth. I guess you got to have stuff like that. Blabbermouth reminds me of the TMZ. It's the TMZ of heavy metal, And it's all just, you can believe it if you want. If that's your life, and then you live for that. And you don't just live for reading the comments and the headlines, but you actually believe it. Or if you don't believe it, your goal is to just go on there and in your mommy's basement on your computer that mommy bought you and make all these ridiculous cliche comments about everything they post. And I find myself going into Blabbermouth and reading stuff and just shaking my head thinking, this is sad,
Yeah.
It really is. It's pretty pathetic. But hey, if you got legitimate sources, you got to have those kind of smut sources too, and that's just the way it works.
Right. Actually, I'm kind of glad. We were supposed to do this the other day, and it got pushed to today. And I'm kind of glad because there was a story that actually popped up on Blabbermouth. It was either yesterday or the day before, and it made me think, was this what Michael was talking about? Because I guess it was maybe when we talked at one point 2 years ago. Maybe it was for the first Sweet Lynch album.
Right.
You talked about. You guys were talking about you and George and the other Docking guys about maybe you fronting a new band with those guys, and now it came out that Robert Mason's going to be doing it.
Yeah, and I don't know for a fact that the version that Robert Mason is doing, which is the same lineup, but with a different name. I don't know if that's the same thing I was going to be doing with them, but I was I was asked by George to do it. And I agreed, and then I had a phone conversation with Jeff Pilson, and I was asked by Jeff to do it, and I said, yeah, cool, let's do it. And
nice.
This was a few years back, and I'm very busy, they're very busy, but I've reached out a few times and just said, so any word, anything going on, and haven't really got any sort of an answer. And then I read the news like everybody else that they're doing this thing with Robert Mason, and I think that's great. I do wish them all well. It's going to be awesome, but I am kind of scratching my head a little bit, thinking, okay,
what happened?
Yeah, that's interesting, and And if I talk about it, I'm a whiner and I'm a complainer and I'm a sore loser, and it's not that at all.
Right.
Not at all. Trust me, it's really not. I mean, quite frankly, even if they had called me 2 months ago or 3 months ago and said, "So you want to do this?" I would have had to say no, because I'm recording a new Stryper album right now, and we're going to tour extensively next year.
Oh,
so
nice.
I wouldn't have the time. I would just say, I got to pass now, But back when they were considering doing it and talking to me about doing it, yeah, I would have loved to. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But we have Stryper to worry about, and we have Sweet Lynch, and we have Michael Solo, so we have plenty of music coming from you. So it's all good.
Yeah, and I try not to spread myself too thin. Some people think I do, but when you compare me to, guys like George and whatnot, George releases, maybe even 3 and 4 projects a year. I release 1 a year, sometimes 2 a year, but that's rare. But I really try hard not to spread myself too thin and take on too much, because then what happens is you start diluting the effectiveness and the quality of a particular project. If you're rushing through it, or you're throwing it together too quickly and stuff, fans are going to start to hear that, and it's going to become a problem and not be good for everyone.
That's true. Now, with the latest Sweet Lynch album, Unified,
right?
Was there anything, like, did you guys approach this one differently than the first one, since you guys had actually worked together already?
Well, it was definitely a project where, the story is Serafino reached out to me and wanted to do a project with me singing with John Levin, who plays guitar for Don Dawkins. Okay. And then I suggested George. They loved it, and it just started snowballing from there. And then I brought in Brian. I brought in James. And we just kind of winged it and put everything together, and not really having everything planned out. This album was a little bit more planned out. There's something to be said, though, for just random, sporadic projects, ones that you don't have on paper. That's what the first album was. This second album was more on paper and more thought out and planned out, discussed and whatnot. It's apples and oranges, good and bad, to both ways of doing it. But, the Sweet Lynch thing, man, I look at it this way. I made a comment on my Twitter and my Facebook that it was a bucket list item of mine that I got to scratch off. I got to play with George. Something I always wanted to do. I don't know that there are going to be more Sweet Lynch albums. I hope there are going to be, but I don't know realistically if there are going to be. George is a very busy guy, and like I said, he takes on a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of stuff going on.
Sure.
And you never know. There might be more. The problem is, just as the fans would probably say the same thing, I don't want to do it and continue doing it if we're never going to tour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of silly,
Yeah, like, I personally, like, and I say this to a lot of people, too, like, who do situations like that where they'll record this album where you're teamed up with this other person, and it was just meant to be that, like a musical project, not an actual touring project or any live shows. And I would, like, I know when I would play in a band and we would come up with new music, I was like, oh, I can't wait to play it in front of people to get reaction and feedback, and I would go nuts.
Absolutely, and believe me, we've talked about it quite a few times, and I've called George, and then I've called my agent, who just so happens to be our agent. George has the same agent, Lynch Mob.
Okay.
And I feel like it'd be a real easy thing to do.
Sure.
Not difficult, but for whatever reason, it's turned into a difficult thing and just never seems to work out for whatever reason. And I'm just thinking, this is just ludicrous. It's crazy to me, because the fans want to hear Sweet and Lynch. Nothing against Lynch Mob.
Right.
I think they're great, but I think the fans want to hear the Sweet and Lynch stuff live just as much as they do Lynch Mob.
Sure.
And maybe I'm stretching that out. I don't know. but I think that people want to hear these songs and see this lineup. It's a great lineup. James, Brian, George, and myself, and it would be killer. And I know people would come out and see that, and it's very exciting. It'd be a very exciting show. But it just never seems to materialize, and I'm just thinking, well, okay, maybe it's just not meant to be.
Wow. And you know, it's funny because you guys just put out recently the video for Walk, and you know, you guys filmed it out in L.A., and you're on the streets, you're in Amoeba Records, and it looked like you guys had such a good time.
We had a blast. We had an absolute blast, and all the more reason why I can't figure out why we just can't seem to go out there and do some shows. And even one-offs seem to be a problem. You know, like doing a show on Monsters of Rock Cruise. You know, George is going to be there. I'm going to be there. They were there last time. We were there last time. And, you know, it's suggested, and it just never happens. And it's like, well, why? It makes no sense. There's got to be other reasons why that I'm unfamiliar with.
All right, so I don't feel as bad now. So myself and the fans are all scratching our head, and it seems like you are too.
I am big time, and it is not due. It not happening is not due to my an involvement. I've been very involved in trying to make it happen, and a champion of pushing that along. And you know, I can only do so much. You know,
right. And the one thing too with this album that I really noticed, and I was going through like watching all the EPK videos that you guys put out from the studio. And the one thing that really kept standing out in my mind as I'm watching these is it was showing not only like the music and you guys and the band, but it was showing you as a producer a lot and how much you truly enjoy that.
I do. I've never really got recognition as a producer, and you know, you can't force that. It's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. I've produced a lot of stuff over the years, and you know, I really, certainly at the very least, co-produced all the Stryper albums.
Right.
You know, you take for example like Soldiers in the Command. Michael Wagner produced that, and Michael brought a lot to the table. He's legendary and he's great. But you know, we walked into that album with all the songs written, all the songs arranged, all the parts worked out. We didn't change a thing. We were out playing those songs live, and we went in and re-recorded those songs that we were playing live for a year. And Michael just grinned and said, "That's great, perfect." And I think he was astonished at the fact that we were so prepared and that we did have so much involvement in the production sense. So these albums are really co-produced by myself and by the band, and I've been in the studio since I was 12 years old. My dad's a recording artist and a singer-songwriter. Mike Curb used to manage my dad and mom. He had a deal with RCA for a while. He wrote a #1 country song with Fred Imus, Don's brother. And I grew up in a studio, man. I was in studios when I was, 11, 12, 13 years old, and learning about the gear and recording and everything. So I've been in it my whole life. So yeah, I'm a producer, and I've been a producer my whole life, and it's still at the age of 54. I'll be 55 in July. Still at this time in my life, I don't think people view me as a producer. They kind of view me as that singer from Stryper,
Right. Do you think you can see yourself maybe in the future slowing down on the music performing end and doing more producing?
I would love to. The problem is this music world we live in, and the business itself, it's struggling. I'm not going to go in. I argue with Frontiers Records often. I love Frontiers. I've done many albums with them. They've asked me to come on board and be an in-house producer and a talent scout. And I unfortunately the money just wasn't enough to make me say yes.
Gotcha.
Because I'm not going to invest my blood, sweat, and tears in 3 months of my life on every album to walk away with $5,000 to put in my account,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't do it. I can't afford to do that. So,
Sure.
And sadly, there's not enough money in the music business for bands like myself and artists like myself to make that a reality. But between Stryper and myself, solo, and Sweet and Lynch, and a few other projects I have in the works, I've been very blessed to be able to work with Frontiers and Rat Pack Records on a solo deal, and a few other labels that have expressed interest in working with me and whatnot. And I've been able to kind of survive and rise to the top and still do what I do without compromise. So I'm really fortunate in that way.
Nice. Now, something else, too, that you're working on, actually it's coming out in a couple of weeks, is a solo DVD.
That was just one of those things that it came to be a really incredibly talented director, film producer by the name of Andrew Joyce. He put together the video that started the Stryper shows on the To Hell with the Devil tour last year.
Okay.
And he did such an amazing job that we wanted to work with him in other areas, and he wound up coming out and shooting a solo show of mine, and then we decided to offer it as a DVD, and we kind of did that together. That's really cool. And then also, we've hired him to do the Stryper documentary.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And that's been long overdue, but we started on that. It won't be finished for a couple of years. But, man, that's going to be absolutely insane when it's done. Because this kid, he's 26 years old. He is so talented, and he puts so much into it. And when you watch it, you really see that. He's a gift. He's a true godsend. And, we feel that God sends these people into our lives. And, he's just a cut above. When you see this documentary, when you look at it and you compare it to other documentaries, I guarantee you'll say, wow. Because he's just that good.
You guys have a lot of ground to cover.
We've got a lot of
ground. Documentaries.
Yeah, and we're not gonna so much focus on the negative. And believe me, there's been a lot. We have good and bad in our camp, like any other band. But
sure.
It's more about the history of the band, and we're going to focus on like interviewing people whose lives have been changed because of the band. Nice. Former alcoholics and drug addicts and people that are pastors now and things like that. It's just going to be one of those things where I think everyone's going to watch it and say, "Wow, I had no idea. This is
sure.
crazy."
Did you ever think of that? I mean, like, probably not even getting into music as a child, but over the years, how much your music has meant to people and how it's affected people over the years?
I do realize it when I meet people that are, people that I would least expect to tell me their story. And tell me that they were touched and moved and changed because of Stryper. And I'm talking about like, we go out and we travel and, I'll meet a Satanist, and like a real deal Satanist. And they're head of a chapter in that town. And it's the real deal. And you're just sitting there looking at them and thinking, wow, this is heavy stuff. And then
right.
They tell me, yeah, I'm a huge Stryper fan. I love Stryper. They're my favorite band. And and they're in the front row singing every song. Now, it's a contradiction. You think, how is that possible? It'd be like Michael Sweet going to a Slayer show and singing the words to every song. Well, Slayer's old news in terms of a dark metal band, but pick any metal band. Pick some band from Europe, from Finland or something that's hardcore Satanist, dark metal, black metal. And it'd be like Michael Sweet going to one of their shows and singing the words to every song. People would say, what? It doesn't really make sense, but yet it does, because we're all touched by music. We're all affected by music. And when these people, Satanists, come, or Muslims, we went and performed in Jakarta to, like 5,000 or 6,000 Muslims, and they were, applauding and screaming and singing the songs. And when we go to Japan and we're playing to primarily Buddhist, we're a Christian band singing about God, but yet they love Stryper and they love what we do because they love the music. We
Right.
hope that the message sinks in and takes root. But at the end of the day, just the fact that they're there is a pretty big step for all mankind. And
Sure,
it's pretty
sure.
cool, man. It's pretty cool.
It's funny. I wanted to ask you that too. Going back to the Walk video, going through Amoeba Records, I was thinking to myself, so when Michael's not writing music, what is he listening to? Like, did you walk in the store, or walk out of the store, I should say, and buy any music while you were there?
I did. I bought some music. I think I bought a Muse disc, and I bought an old vinyl album. I'm trying to recall what it was. George bought quite a few. He bought some old vinyl albums, vinyl records, and some really eclectic stuff, and very cool. But, believe it or not, I'll be honest, man, I don't listen to music that often. Only time I listen to music is when I'm driving on a long drive, or if I'm flying on a long flight.
Right.
But at home, when we're going to have people over, we'll turn on something, we'll put some jazz on, or something that's real easy listening and whatnot. But I don't listen to metal. I didn't back in the 80s.
Right.
I in the 70s I did. I listened to Priest and Iron Maiden, and in the 70s and early 80s. But as Stryper became bigger and more popular, I listened to less and less music, I guess because I was performing it every night and writing it every day. So
Right.
I don't listen to a lot of music, man.
Wow. I was wondering if you had any thoughts, if you've checked out at all the band Ghost.
You know what? I don't. I've heard all sorts of things about them. I've listened to little pieces of their music. I don't get the I don't really get the excitement or the allure. I've heard them, and people
Right.
talk about them. People talk about them like they're the most creative, most incredible thing to come along in a long, long time. And I sometimes I feel like I'm either really old or from another planet. because I'm just not getting it. I'm sorry,
Right.
but I'm not. They're good, but when I think of bands, rock bands that changed music, I think of bands that have the talent and have the energy and the power. I think of Van Halen.
Right.
Van Halen 1. That was music world changing. And there aren't very many bands that have done that over the years.
True.
But what do you think of Ghost?
Actually, I actually really enjoy them. I really like them a lot.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, so do my daughters. I have a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old, and
Yeah.
I've taken them to see Ghost 3 times. And as a matter of fact, at dinner last night, my older daughter was asking again, "When are they coming back? When are they coming back?"
Yeah. Now see, and I think that's great. And when a band or music from a band, reaches out to people like that and makes them want to get involved in music and see music and hear music, and it has that effect on them, I think it's awesome. It just hasn't had that effect on me.
Right. No, I get it, because there's a lot of stuff out there. I say the same thing to myself, like, am I that old, or am I just missing the boat?
Yeah. Trust me, a band that had that effect on me, that made me go, whoa, who's that? I want to hear more, was Muse.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's exciting talent, like who are these guys? You know, those are the kinds of bands, newer bands that come along and make Michael Sweet go, wow.
Nice. That's good, though. That's good that there's still music out there making you go, wow.
Oh, God, of course. Absolutely there is. And then sometimes I hear old school albums that make me go, wow, too. Old school bands, I should say, who are still releasing music that make me go, wow, this is really good. I just listened and played some of the new L.A. Gun stuff for Rob and Oz when they were out here 4 or 5 weeks ago. We were listening to it because I really like that album. I think they released a great album, and they loved it too. It's exciting. It's produced well.
It is a great album.
It's got fire to it, you know, and that puts a smile on my face to know that there are bands from our genre who are still releasing great stuff.
Nice. Yeah, it is a great album.
Yeah.
Cool. So now you're also doing I guess this is your yearly thing you do now, the Michael Sweet Christmas?
It is. It's an annual thing. I missed last year due to some other schedule conflicts, but try to make it an annual thing. This will be my 4th time, and it's in my hometown. Well, let me rephrase that. Not my hometown. It's in the town I live in, Plymouth, Mass. And it's just a really cool place, man. It's an old church. It dates back, you know, way, way, way back. It's like a landmark for sure, and a place that people go when they come to Plymouth. They go see and whatnot. And I'm going to be performing there. It's just a great place, and we're going to be celebrating Christmas. And I'm proud to say that. You know, I'm going to be doing a lot of Christmas songs and some Stryper tunes and solo tunes, and seeing a lot of people. We got people flying in. And it's exciting, man. It's more of like a family reunion than it is a show.
That sounds awesome. Now,
it is. Awesome.
I know you did the like a short, small little acoustic tour. Would you be doing in the future? Think about doing more of that? I mean, it sounds like an amazing time.
You know what it is? I love it because it's when you go out with a big group of people and you've got, 10 people or 12 people and you're on a bus and you're flying and you're trying to coordinate, 30 or 40 shows, and it can become very, very stressful and just kind of a blur and so much going on. But when I go out and I do these solo shows, it's very low key. And, it's just a completely different world. And I like that world too.
Nice.
I like the other world. There's something to be said for that, but I also like to wind down and just go out, take my acoustic, get on a plane, go fly, perform, come home. And there's something really cool about that. So I try to do, on a yearly basis, anywhere between like 20 and 30 acoustic shows.
Oh, nice.
And I love
doing it. Well, you got to get Philly on that list.
What's that?
You have to get Philly on that list.
Oh, man, tell me about it. I think Philly's one of those towns where it's even Stryper doesn't even visit Philly.
No.
Every year. I know. And I don't know why. There are certain complications with certain areas that kind of roadblock what we're trying to do. And sadly, because of lack of venue or lack of buyers or for whatever reason, it makes it difficult for us to go to certain areas as much as we would like to.
Right.
But we'll work on that. We will work hard on that.
Awesome. I expect to see 2018 Stryper in the Philadelphia area. I think you guys played, what was it, Reading, which was about an hour away.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what are some great venues? Nice high-end club venues, 750 to 1,200 capacity in Philly.
Let's see. The TLA on South Street. The Trocadero, which is in Chinatown, which is about 5 minutes away from South Street.
Okay.
They're probably the two biggest options. There's a place, but it's not. It's actually smaller. It's called the Sellersville Theater, where a lot of bands have been coming to as of late.
Really?
Yeah. I think it holds about 300 to 400. It's an old theater, but a lot of bands in the area come through there.
Now, see,
like
that's
YT.
what, those are the size venues. Those are the size venues I've been doing on my acoustic run.
Yeah.
I'm doing like 200 to 400 capacity venues, and then when Stryper plays, it's usually in that 700 to 1200 range.
Yeah, that's the bad part about Philly, because there's more of those clubs like in Reading or in Lancaster that are more accommodating for that,
right?
And draw better. And actually, the thing I'm seeing in Philly now, and I was just talking to one of the PR people I deal with the other day, and we were BSing, and I was saying, the thing what's going on now is you're seeing a lot of either these style bands or even with the local bands. There's not much of a market in Philly, and they're all playing on the same night. And it's the small crowd that you have to choose from. It's splitting and dividing it because they're being split to 2 to 3 different shows in one night, and nobody's getting a full Philly crowd.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Well, it's tough, and it's not just Philly. There's a few other markets that are that way for us, too, and it's hard to get into for whatever reason. You know what, believe it or not, seems difficult now is the Boston area, and that was never an issue for us. But
really?
a few venues have closed down. House of Blues is a larger House of Blues capacity-wise. I think it's up in the 1,800 range or 2,000 range. So that's a little on the big side. There's a place called Showcase Live that's like private events now. So it makes it difficult for us to book a gig in Boston, which is where I live.
Right. Wow.
Crazy.
Wow. Yeah, it's a crazy. It's not even just with the record sales. It's with the buildings and touring. The whole music business is just crazy right now.
I know. It's different. It's a different world, and you got to be very creative and smart and figure out ways to get around it. And we've been able to do that. Stryper's still going, and there's no plans of slowing down or stopping.
Nice.
And, maybe we'll have to someday. I don't know. We'll see. But, man, we're very happy and very blessed and thankful to still be doing it.
Well, so am I, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are very thankful too.
Well, I hope so. And, we're always going to give our all and give our best, and, that's just the way we do things around here, and we're excited to keep doing it, man. Hopefully for another, I think 33 years would be stretching it, but if we could go another 10 years or 15 years, we'd be very fortunate, very blessed.
There you go. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, man.
Cool. So, all right. So, where should we send everybody to keep up to date and get all this music that you're putting out?
Well, they can always go to the Facebook pages, Stryper Facebook, the Michael Sweet Facebook, and then we've got the Twitter, Stryper on Twitter, and Michael Sweet Stryper on Twitter. And I'm very active on both. And I'm always updating and giving people details of what's going on, and you can count on that from me every day. And that's where they get all the latest info. And then we have the web pages as well, websites, Stryper.com and michaelsweet.com.
That reminds me that was something you guys did, which I thought was kind of ballsy too. You guys did a Facebook Live, Stryper did, right after the whole situation, and I was like, ooh, that must have been scary because it like them blabbermouth people making comments. You never know what could be popping up on there.
Yeah, it's funny, man, but Stryper, we're a band comprised of the way we think is bring it. We grew up in tough neighborhoods, man. We're a lot tougher than people think. And it takes a lot to shake us. And, we don't shake easily, man. So we didn't even think about that. We just thought, let's do it. you know.
See, it's the first thing I thought of. I was just like, wow. Like, I was just like, yeah, I was impressed. I really was.
Well, hey, man, again, we've been on stages where food and chains and bottles were being thrown at us in front of a crowd that, you know, was getting ready to see all black metal bands, and here we are put on the bill. I will be honest and tell you that we wanted to kill our agent, but we've done it. We've done that kind of stuff, right, and things that most bands probably wouldn't do. And we've done it. We've been there and done it. And you know, it just takes a lot more than that to stop us or to scare us or slow us down. So yeah, we'll keep doing that, man. We'll keep rolling up the sleeves and duking it out.
Nice. Well, Michael, I want to thank you. As always, it's always a great conversation. Good luck again with everything that you got going on, and hopefully I get to see you in Philly in 2018. I hope I get to talk to you again in 2018.
Absolutely, man. We'll be talking again for sure because there's a lot on the horizon, and I appreciate your support and you taking out, time from your day to talk to me. It means the world.
Back at you, my friend. Have a good Christmas and all, and happy 2018 to you.
Okay, buddy. God bless, man. Merry Christmas.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.